Morning everybody, Mike Brailsford of Brailsford Woodworks back again. Thank you all for joining me on my channel. Today I'm going to run through some scrap oak I have and get it ready to make into end grain cutting boards. I had an order for 19 cutting boards this past Christmas season at work. They had asked me to make them for them. Inevitably I have a lot of scrap that comes off the edges of the boards, and at the time it's not prudent to waste that time to get it ready to use that in the boards. So I saved that aside, and I'm now going to plane it down to whatever thickness I can get and glue them up and get them cut into boards. And so right now I'm just culling through the pile and pulling out the stuff, because there's inevitably some stuff that's just not worthwhile for anything. We got some like this. This is just, there's nothing left on this piece. This piece is just loaded with cracks. It just asks for trouble later on when you're actually making the boards. So these two will be tossed out. I'll use them in my wood stove. But almost everything else I can go through. I'm sure there'll be a couple other ones with there's another piece with cracks. But I'll probably be able to get 2, maybe 3 boards out of this. And you know, the end grain cutting boards are very popular. I sell a lot of them at when I do craft fairs. So let me get started. Okay, so I'm back working on the scrap wood cutting boards. I got the two boards that I was able to glue up ready to go. So all I can do is take my clamps out and then we're going to run them through the planer. So let me get these things unclamped. Alright, so the way this works, it's so simple. I just took any scrap I got, planed it down so it's flat, got it straight on one side, and I just glue them up into boards about 12 inches wide. And what I'll do now is I will take this and I'll run it through my planer until this is down to a uniform thickness where there's no voids anywhere. And then I'll cut them into strips. And then the strips are turned up and then glued together in a big stack. You rearrange them so that you can get a nice pattern out of them. But this is all wood that I would have burned anyway. Now when I go to my craft shows, you're looking at a board I can get at least $100 for. And that's all there is to it. So next stop is the planer. Okay, now we're here to the gluing up of the board itself. And what you do is you take your strips that you've cut, and you can do a couple different things. So these are stacked up basically just as they came off the board. Just cut and then set up. What you can do is you can take it like that. You could glue it up just like this and have this kind of uniform pattern through there. Or some people would take this and they would flip over every other one, and then you get a pattern like that. It would be an alternating pattern, but it would be a pattern. But if you're integrating another one, because this would be kind of a small board, if you're integrating another bunch, you can take one, spin it around, then add one of these. Do the same thing, one, spin one around, add another one of these. And then just keep repeating the pattern. Let's see what this gives us, because I usually like to keep them big. about 12 inches wide by like 15 inches long. And that one there gives us 15 right there. But I think this is a nice pattern. And you know, like I said, when you're gluing up the boards, the widths of the other board, it really doesn't matter. And if anything, these narrow ones, wider ones, it all adds to the visual effect. Because once it's been sanded, as you'll see, once it's been sanded and it's all squared up and you put the oil on it, all that stuff will just pop. So now we're just going to glue these up. Find my rollers. I was going to be dead in the water. All right. Just apply. I use Titebond 3 because it's a waterproof glue. And what I say to all the people whom I sell cutting boards to is that the board, the glue is waterproof. The wood is not waterproof. So that if you soak it too long in water, the wood will ultimately fail around the glue, causing the joint to fail. So I try to caution them on letting it soak. I mean, cleaning it is perfectly fine. You can wash it, you can even drop it in the water. But once you got it done, pull it out, dry it right away. And along with my wood turning, I really like making these. These are fun. And from an entrepreneur perspective, it's a good it's good money for the amount of time it takes me to make them. I've sold a lot of these at work. I've probably made 200 of these things for my place of work. The hospital I work at, they've bought them from me to give to their board of directors because the board of directors isn't paid. And all they do is give them a Christmas present every year. And one year was cutting boards, and I made, for that batch, it was 57 of them, I think. It was a lot. That obviously wasn't made with scrap. And I'm pretty liberal with the glue here. I like plenty of squeeze out. So when I'm done with the glue up, after it dries, I come back tomorrow or the day after, whenever I work on this next, I will actually run it through my planer. I use my DeWalt DW735, and I take very, very shallow cuts because I'm planing end grain, and I use it on its slow speed, and I get pretty good results. I try to go very, very easy. Like I said, very light cuts because I don't like because that's really taxing the machine hard to run end grain through it, straight end grain, rather than just an occasional knot. Alright, and I'll use 3 clamps on this. Put the top one on until I get a gentle amount of squeeze out, and I flip her over, get get the other two on, and that's when I really put down on them. So I really want to get eventually a larger stationary planer. Something, a 20-inch would be great. And the reason for that is that I will be able to make wider boards than 12 inches. And that's that. Now, you know what? I don't even worry about all the squeeze out. I just let it run around. All right, so the board is set up. It's time to unclamp it. And then we are going to run it through the planer. Okay, we got the clamps off. I'm not going to do anything to it other than put it in through the planer, and we'll get it smooth, and then we'll take it over to the table saw and we'll straighten it out. We'll cut off the uneven edges and get it ready to put an edge on. And I also put finger grooves in on the ends for lifting it, and you know, once I sand it, I'll put a slight chamfer all the way around it. And I sand it to 220 because it's a cutting board, doesn't need anything more than that. And that'll be about it. After that, I put some mineral oil and beeswax on it, and it's done. All right, let's move over to the planer. So as I had said, when I run these through the planer, being that it's fully end grain, I take very shallow cuts. First, very shallow cuts. Secondly, I do it on slow speed. So I gotta get it shifted at slow speed. I have to start it first. So I'm gonna get my vacuum going. Get this started. All right, so this is the state of it now after it's been planed. Looks beautiful. It'll even be more beautiful once I square it up and we get it finished. But again, this was all just scrap wood, and instead of just throwing it away, I've put it to good use, and it will be, you know, worth $100 to me. There we go. Now to square it up. Again, this is, I've talked about my Delta Unifence in the past, but this is one of the benefits of it. Being able to pull off the large fence, put on the small cutoff fence. It's tremendous. I love this thing. Okay, now I'm going to put my finger grips on this. What I have found is I got my jaw stand here, and I have found that if I just clamp it in here and then run my router with the cove bit in here, from here to here, it gives me a nice length for my the finger grip, and I don't have to make any other fancy jigs or anything like that. I can just do it right. And that's the 80 grit, and so it'll go through the rest of the grits, and I'll come back to you when I'm about to burn my brand on, and then I'll come back after that once I'm ready to start drilling the holes for the feet and putting on the mineral oil. So I've put my brand on there, and now I'm just gonna continue on through 180 and 220 grit on my belt sander. Then I'll hit it with my palm sander on the edges and on the chamfers, and then I'll be ready for some oil. All right, now it's sanded up as much as I'm gonna sand it. And I made a jig a long time ago for putting in my, drilling my holes for my feet, and this is what I use. I use these little rubber bumpers. I buy these from McMaster Car. I found that they are by far the best price. If you go online to McMaster Car, you can find them. Everywhere else, you go look at these on Amazon, they're crazy expensive. On McMaster Car, it's a tiny fraction of the cost I've seen it anywhere else. So I use the bumpers, and then I also use some McFeely's square drive stainless steel screws. But let's get this thing drilled out. And you can see this oil just makes this grain just pop out like crazy. Now that's good and soaked. I'm going to let this till it gets a little bit, appears a little bit dry and soaked in. Then I'll flip it over and get the other side. Now that's pretty flooded. I do the top more than I do the bottom, but I might take some of this that's on this rag afterwards, flip it over after the top is soaked in a lot, and give it another dousing on the bottom. I just keep tapping in the areas where it looks like it is soaked in. Some grain sucks it in a lot more than others. So I got some Howard's Feed and Wax, this is what I like to use as a top coat. So I get a little bit spread on here. It's beeswax and citrus oil. Nice liberal coating. Make sure it gets rubbed into the edges. Okay. Buff this down a little bit. All right, time to put on the feet. So there's a little metal washer in the bottom of these feet. When you drive them in, you got to be careful because you'll push the washer right through the rubber. And that is it. Let me straighten this up. Got another little wipe on it, and let's take a look at it. All right, so I don't care how thick the wood is or anything else. I just run it through my planer and I get whatever I get, and I glue them up into boards. Then I will plane those boards to whatever thickness I get. Then I cut them into strips that I make into these boards. And I think the diversity of that gives you such a wide range of looks that, you know, this one is, I'm pretty happy with this board. This looks pretty nice, and it won't take much for this one to sell. These things are pretty popular when at the craft shows, and it's a good profit margin on these. I'm pretty happy with that. But and once I've done a lot of them, so I've kind of gotten into the muscle memory of what it takes to make these things, and I've got it down to more of a science, really. So and that's about it. That's all there is to these. So if you like any of the videos I've done, please take a look at some of the other links around me. If you like the stuff I produce, please take a look at my website, brailsfordww.com. I'd appreciate it. You can also see my stuff on Etsy and on Instagram. So, thank you all for watching. Please stay safe. Bye-bye.